All for one, you were doing so good, man. And of course, right at the very end, you folded. But who's that guy? He's actually pretty drippy. Thank you to our $5 patron, Sin is Lancelot. And a big thank you to our $25 patron, the Mr. Greed. Before we have this review of chapter 343 of My Hero Academia, please do me a favor and leave your own list on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come with the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, and I'd appreciate any support you're willing to give. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got a pencil here, and here we are to break down and review chapter 343 of My Hero Academia, which is known as Let You Down. And yeah, All For One did let me down, bro. How'd you fall for that? Well, no, man, okay, let's just hop into the chapter itself. So you open up, and as Horikoshi loves to do, he likes to put us on false rugs. And when I call false rugs, I mean he gives us an interesting premise, and then within that same chapter, he'll renege it. So we start off with this whole idea that, all for one, lies don't work on him. If you have even the slightest sliver, lick, bite, taste of malicious intent, oh, I'll know. I'll figure that out. That's all me. And of course, like, that's a cool ability. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Ironically enough, it reminds me of a character from Four Knights of the Apocalypse. But the thing is, it's fine, right? I wonder what quirk. Well, notably, he says he doesn't even remember the quirk it came from, right? Like, once you're as old as All For One and how many quirks you must have gathered over the years, specific quirks, their memory must fade into the background, especially after you get your head pounded in by like 9 different people. That has to hurt, has to mess up the brain cavity a little bit. And no manner of super regeneration is gonna fix all of that. So I definitely get it. But he goes into this whole deep thing about how this quirk came from what he kind of remembers to be like a pretty plain guy. But his descendant, on the other hand, was much more memorable. And apparently, the irony is that he worked side by side with All Might to bring me down. So, work side by side with All Might to bring me down. So would that be Gran Torino's ancestor, or would it be Night Eye's ancestor? Because working side by side with All Might means it can't be Nana. It can't be any of the previous one for all users. And the only, like, kind of plain guy, but then again, the descendant was much more memorable. So I'm not sure who he's referring to here. I'm assuming it'd be Gran Torino, because I don't think Night Eye was Night Eye at the battle. I know he wasn't at the second battle with All For One in the Bakugo Rescue arc, and I don't think. Then again, I don't even remember if we got told or like shown explicit details. I think it's Gran Torino, but I wonder. Like, I wonder how his quirk. Then again, quirk lines, they're kind of weird. So it's not surprising that the guy whose quirk had the ability to perceive truth and lies and stuff like that somehow transformed into an air thing. I wonder if we're ever gonna get any explanation on it. The series is ending this year, so I highly doubt it. You can definitely tell by this chapter alone that Horikoshi's like, we're ending this. But we see that this quirk is apparently the quirk, and the family line that was used to bring him down will now help bring him victory. So, you know, everything comes full circle. Nice to know. And we see he hops on a call. And I don't know, there's something hilarious. Like, he has to have that respirator in his voice, right? Well, actually, no, I think he takes the respirator off. No, he doesn't. So he's literally just talking through a respirator. That is a good speakerphone. Then again, they have holograms, so it makes sense that their phone system will be pretty advanced. But golly gee willikers. And notably, he hops into a conversation. And it's a whole casual back and forth cold conversation. I like it because it goes on the idea of All For One communicating to his plants, his rats, essentially, the idea of bringing Midoriya to him. And I really I wonder what the 40, because the thing is, All For One, the drink metaphor here is quirks, right? But he wants a 40-year age Macallan. That should do the trick, right? The thing is, how old is hold on. Yeah, the thing is, All Might's 46. So if this whole quirk metaphor is supposed to be bring me one for all, obviously, bring me Midoriya, why would you say 40 years, 46 years, actually no. 49. Hold on, I literally just googled it. 49-year-old. Might as well set a 50-year age, but I'm guessing he wasn't really expecting them to bring him all by. It was just a smooth transition into Aoyama's mom saying, "Hey, what about 16-year? What if it was aged in a 16-year-old barrel? I could just have my son pick it up." Like, I'll admit, it's kind of cool code conversation. It's pretty obvious if you know the context, but that's the point, right? Like, obviously, we as readers, due to our knowledge of the situation, should be able to break down the code. I like the way he did it. And obviously, I bet All for One is a man who enjoys his wine, considering he can't see it, and I doubt he can smell it, so he can definitely still taste it. But notably, is it weird? I don't know. Because, like, Aoyama's 16, right? But he got the quirk around age 4 or 5, because that's usually when your quirk develops. So you're telling me about like 12 to maybe, literally about 12 years ago, because that would make Aoyama about 17. But let's say 11 years ago, all for one, you didn't have like a communication quirk of some kind. Like you couldn't plant something in these people. Like I know you have code talk and stuff like that, but I feel like phone calls. I mean, I guess in this era it's fine, but like all the times you spoke before, you could never get caught. Like I know phone calls maybe not be that heavily monitored, but this is kind of essentially this is a primitive way of communication. Like the fact that he had no way to get in contact with Aoyama before or his family before, kind of wild to me, kind of blows me away. But hey, it'd be like that when it'd be like that sometimes. But apparently, over this phone call, after Aoyama's phone number is asked for, All for One senses no ill intent from these people. He senses no idea of betrayal and stuff like that, and apparently he just buys it. Like I guess when the quirk that's supposed to tell you the truth is tell you the truth. Yeah, if the quirk that's supposed to tell you if someone's lying or not isn't going off, then of course that's the ultimate lie detector test. They're good, but I suppose does the quirk work on a matter of perspective? Like you never consider that, oh, maybe in their mind there's no malicious or ill intent because they despise you. And technically they are, like, they're telling the truth from a certain point of view. Like, this could still be a setup. And All for One reveals later on that he was kind of expecting a setup, but at the same time, 50-50. But of course, we see that the whole operation is meant to go down tomorrow. He's supposed to get that fine, I can't say a fine 16-year-old. I don't care how many people in the fandom actually say that. But, like, regardless, tomorrow he gonna get his whole drink of one for all. And I'm not sure if I find this shot corny or cool, right? Like this shot of All for One. I'm assuming that's Shigaraki, right? Like the two eyes peering out of the darkness. Like I feel like it's supposed to be cool, but it's just funny to me. Like, do his eyes glow? I don't know. For some reason, I just couldn't take it seriously when I first saw it. And I was actually a little bit confused when I first saw it. But yeah, I'm assuming that's just Shigaraki. He finally prepared. The week has passed. He's ready to poke his head out of the darkness. And we see that outside this safe haven, or outside of UA, somewhere in this abandoned parking lot, we find Aoyama and Midoriya. And notably, Midoriya seems to just be stumbling across Aoyama, or like, that's the setup, right? Like, he's just running here. But, like, I mean, he called him, so it makes sense. Why would you pick up the phone? Nah, I gotta remember, this is all set up. So Aoyama baited Midoriya here. And once again, hold on. Let me break it down. I like Midoriya's new outfit. Is that like, his original outfit didn't look like that. Is that what it looks like in the movie? I think, right? That's the movie outfit. Outfitted with the gloves plus the compression device. And he's still wearing Gran Torino's old cape. So is that like, I like the fusion of all the different aspects of like Midoriya's history. The only thing that's really missing is the mask. Like, I feel like if he still had the mask from his original costume, it would sort of sum up the entire growth Midoriya's costume has gone on and like all of his tech that he's had. But I can definitely see why you can't do that. And it's better to show your MC's face at a time like this. This is the final war. This is likely the big final battle. So I can see why you would want to hold off on that. So shout out to Horikoshi. Just on the art perspective here, like, Aoyama looks great. Like the detail, despite the plain background. I think the plain background even helps it stand out a bit. So yeah, once again, Horikoshi just going nuts on the art here. But of course, Aoyama is out and about, which is should be illegal. As Midoriya brings up, is like, wait, aren't you supposed to be restrained? And apparently, somehow, some way. See, I feel weird playing along because like we all know this is like It's just a setup. But the essential excuse that Aoyama gives is his parents' lawyers acquitted him. Obviously, that means Midoriya goes to say, wait, we can restart our search efforts, blah, 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 blah. But Aoyama actually goes into a very interesting point, right? He's like, hey, it's interesting that the world, despite all that's going on, seems to be clinging to its old way of life, despite how rapidly it's changing. And clinging to the old way seems futile. And what what Aoyama goes on to explain is the plan of All for One. Because with Japan essentially being in this wrecked state, the entire world is sort of watching it, essentially. Because everything went wrong with Japan. The Japan yen tanked in value. Every Japanese company filed for bankruptcy. Social instability has raised villain activity through the roof. It's just spreading slowly. Like, due to the fall of Japan, which I'm assuming, it kind of saddens me that Japan was the strongest hero nation or whatever. Like, essentially the stronghold that led the world to fall. Like, I was, once again, expecting more out of the other major nations, or like maybe at least the other continents, like Europe, North America, South America. Like, none of you had powerful heroes that could stop this. Like, I can get why the world fell apart in Japan, but I don't see how that suddenly emboldens villains everywhere. Like, there should still be heroes out there doing their thing, because they didn't have major wars. A whole bunch of people didn't die over there. But I can see it's just a wave effect. And obviously, All for One already mentioned that he sent his crew out, his people that he has overseas. He essentially told them to go wild, regardless of consequences. And obviously, looking over at Japan, social instability will spread. So let me take away that criticism. It's a realistic reaction. It's a domino effect. That's what All for One hoped to set up. And notably, Aoyama goes on to explain all this, like a crashing economy, soaring unemployment, and societal chaos has already begun to ensue. And like, I kind of agree with Midoriya here. He's like, what are you talking about, Aoyama-kun? AKA, I'm not saying it's out of character, but this definitely feels like Horikoshi speaking the plot to us. Like, Aoyama in no way, shape, or form, even after his quote-unquote anti-development or development or whatever, he wouldn't talk like this. He wouldn't, like, it's weird. I feel like another character should be here explaining this to Midoriya, or Midoriya should be figuring this out himself, or something like that. Like, Horikoshi using Aoyama as a mouthpiece here, well, it works because of his relations to All for One. I mean, maybe he was just told that, but it doesn't jive with me properly, essentially. I don't know, it seems weird with Aoyama saying this, though I do like the message. I do like, even if it is a whole ton of tell, don't show, which I'm never the biggest fan of, I get it. By a pacing perspective and how Horikoshi likes to write his narratives, this is just how it has to go. He's not going to cut to anywhere else. He's not going to give us like actual perspective reviews. He essentially is not going to AOT it. Like, Attack on Titan, I can talk about this, right? The anime's been out for a while. Part 1's been out for a while. But like, what AOT did to sort of expand the world was essentially plop us in a new part. Like, he gave our characters one main juicy part. He ended that part and then leaped to a new part to establish an outer world, and that helped develop the narrative and show, not tell. However, by doing this, by the way Horikoshi writes, essentially, he's doing a lot of telling, don't show, because he feels like, due to how he's put the narrative up before, by telling a narrative of heroes and villains only in Japan, he limited himself on a time frame wise in the way he wants to pace the story and end it this year, that he couldn't show us any of the stuff that proves what Aoyama's saying here. He essentially, well, no, outside of Japan at least, because we saw the economic unrest and the fall and the rise of villainy in Japan. We saw all that. We had the little like 10 chapter vigilante arc from Midoriya. We saw that. But in terms of the worldwide scale, world building was never really going to be much of a thing that was going to happen in My Hero Academia. I just had to accept that. Like, outside the main societal world, like the general structure of society, we weren't going to see any other places. And notably, all this comes from Aoyama for him to explain that, after all this, after they lose all their strength, all the other nations fall, they'll have no option but to abandon Japan, like, completely. Even though they already did. Like, heroes stop being sent over after Star and Stripes died. Like, there's no support that they're getting from the U.S. All trade lines are cut off too. So I'm not sure what Aoyama's talking about there. But of course, we see a world that's forced to fight and drive and connive for itself. A world that's forced to exist on its own is fragile, right? Because humans naturally are a social society, and once the world stage became a thing, by re-isolating yourself from the world stage, you essentially weaken yourself. And of course, when a country can run out of water, can run out of resources, food, when it can run out of everything, where are people going to turn? They're obviously going to turn to the person who can provide it to them. And while that once may have been the government, once the government falls, a person with a quirk that can produce water, a person with a quirk that wields electricity, a person with a quirk that is able to do it all, he would rule the world. And that is All for One's major goal. Or the Demon Lord. Now, like, I get it's a common term. I definitely know Seven Deadly Sins didn't do it first. But considering that's the one where we literally had a character fully, wholeheartedly named the Demon King / Demon Lord, I just think about it every single time I hear All for One's corny new name. But the thing is, that is the goal of All for One. Simply to become the demon world, the demon lord of this new world. And while it is a slightly bland motivation, I can definitely see, taking over the world plot. I do like the way All for One did it, right? Like, he didn't just brute force it, even though he very easily could have. He very easily could have just killed the One for All user, called it done, and then just kept it pushing, like, really, and just destroyed the entire world. That's it. That's all he really needed to do. But instead, he systematically, through time, connections, bonds, and unity, which ironically enough is something that the hero side does to strengthen their bonds and protect their world, which I think is a good dichotomy there. Nice work, Horikoshi. I just thought about that. That's a good dichotomy, because both characters, both sides of our narrative, heroes and villains, have destroyed / protected the world off the power of their connections and bonds. And the stronger those connections and bonds grow, the more and more that one can succeed in their goal. The stronger 1A got as a unit, the better they could combat against the tide of villainy, and the better the tide of villainy got as a unit, the better they could combat the world. So, I think that's good. That's a good dualistic thing. I like that dualistic narrative storytelling. But of course, speaking of that dualistic narrative storytelling, as Aoyama's like, yo, even if one of those things were to disappear, the power balance will crumble down, and all countries will have to accept that what comes their way. And of course, Midoriya, being the hero, is like, no, there's no way we'll let that happen. Plus, we are still here. And I do like the we. That is, I said it once and I'll say it again. Midoriya has not changed except for the fact that he'll accept help. That's it. The way he has presented himself may have changed, but in very similar vein to another character from a very popular series who did actually break my ankles and trick me into the fact that they changed. He hasn't changed except for this, but I do like the we. He's not saying I am here or I am still here, as in the case that All Might would, taking it all into himself, which is why the world ended up in this situation in the first place. He's saying we are here, showing the growth and development and understanding of the unity of man, the power of humanity working together. Yeah, friendship, power, gains, but whatever. We see that Aoyama's like, Midoriya, you kind of spitting, my boy. You really are still here, right? On that big All Might energy. Throw him up. But, I hate to say it, my boy. This is my final gambit. And, as a famous rapper once said, I did it for my mama. All for One floats down. And honestly, I love the image. Obviously, it's a thumbnail for a reason. One, because my markers quiver in fear. My markers and my lack of understanding of how to use digital art so far. Like, just quivering in fear of this pen. I would have drawn it myself if I had the confidence and capability. But can we acknowledge how drippy All for One looks? Like, the helmet's corny as ever. I get why he wears it, but it's still corny as ever. But he doesn't just have the traditional suit on. He got the fancy button up. He got the tie. Man's looking drippy as all get out. I love it. And I love how, like, it's implied. I'm not sure. It's implied that he just flew here. Like, oh, he has air step. Well, for one, why'd you give yourself a flying quirk and not... Why'd you give yourself a flying quirk and not yourself? Why does Shigaraki need wings? Why does Shigaraki, for one, need wings, but you don't? You didn't have a copy of that one? You didn't have 2 flying quirks, 2 fully autonomous flying quirks? Come on now, you could have had something that at least mimicked it. I just realized he's flying. But regardless, this is a very cool image. I love the way that All for One in this like world that seems mostly calm, right? The clouds are flowing through the sky, the building's still constructed behind him, but the despair you see on Aoyama's face as he's breaking down into sweat and fear. Because all for one, he is just that dude. Like I don't think like MHA doesn't have a system where like the raw magical pressure or the raw presence of somebody can do something to you. Like in systems like Dragon Ball and systems like Seven Deadly Sins, Black Clover, Bleach, like they have these systems where if a powerful person is in the area, one way or another, you will know. Like you're either your sixth sense will fire off, or in the case of Bleach, if they really feel like it, you will literally just collapse just because of how much pressure they are radiating. But I love how Horikoshi captures that effect without going as far as establishing a system like that, by showing the very fear that All For One's presence just instills in Aoyama. And I love it the same thing for Midoriya, right? Because here's the thing, even if this is a setup, this has to be terrifying. Because I still don't think Midoriya mastered One For All. Like, sure, he can mimic the properties of 100% One For All. Like, he has Fajin. That's something he can do now. And who knows? I think, there's still one more quirk for him to unlock that we didn't get to see yet. So, there is that. But at least on the front of accessing the full power that's required to beat one All For One, which was 100% One For All, I don't think Midoriya has easy access to it, essentially. Like I said, he can mimic it, but that takes time. And who knows? He could have been doing a whole ton of squats and movements and arm rolls to build up that momentum in order to get a bunch of Fajin stored up so he doesn't destroy his body. But even still, this reaction of Midoriya's, of just like shock, fear, and worry, All For One, like notably, he's sweating in reverse. Like, he's sweating, but the sweat isn't falling down his face, it's rising up. So All For One definitely got that presence to him. And of course, All For One's like, nice work, dear nephew. You delivered him just as promised. And, I'll admit, even though I do think All For One folded, I do love how he's like, man, it sure must have been painful backstabbing your friends like that, right? Oh, you must have been in so much anguish being trusted so blindly like that. Like, it's the character torture for me. Like, I really appreciate that. I love it when our villains don't just make our characters physically suffer, but mentally suffer. That's the proper chef's kiss good writing right there. Why do I like it? I don't know, because physical scars always heal, but never the mental ones. Those are the best. So we see that and notably, I love it too, because All For One is just clapping. He's like, you surpassed my expectations. Nice work, my boy. And of course, Midoriya, he begins to power up. He begins to flare. And we see that, and I wonder, like, how did he get here? Was he literally just flying? Was he listening? Was Aoyama's phone on? Oh, Aoyama's phone was likely on. And he probably has, like, a radio chip, like, in his mask or something like that. But, like, he literally is like, oh, that whole spiel about my final plan was quite marvelous. Wasn't 100% accurate, but did your parents tell you all that? Like, he was listening in. Like, I love All For One so much now as a villain, because he is such a flair for the dramatic. Like, you could tell All For One back in the day was a drama kid, right? Like, he is all about the presentation. That's why he got the proper suit. He got a new shirt. He got a fresh tie. I bet he handcrafted that mask. Like, he got himself the more thematic flying quirk because it just looks cooler for him to be floating in the air rather than beating his wings. Like, all that. It's just great. I love it. I love just the dramatism behind All For One. I think that's why, like, sheer villain presentation wise, I think I enjoy him more than Shigaraki, because Shigaraki doesn't necessarily care too much about the presentation. He's more just so, I'm gonna punch you in the mouth now. And by punch in the mouth, I mean, like, stab you in the face. So, it's fine. There are two kinds of villains, but I greatly appreciate what All For One brings to the table. But of course, we see that Aoyama admits that, yes, his parents did tell him everything. And Midoriya, why? I mean, I guess you got to keep acting for right now, because he's like, I believed in you, Aoyama. End of, yeah, whatever. But then I was like, I don't feel like I can feel anguish anymore, my dear uncle. And then, like, I think yo, shout outs to his athleticism there. Like, how many of y'all can do that? He was in a downward lean, and then the man flipped. Like, he literally did a standing flip. He literally fired off his laser beam. I said beam. His laser beam, and swung out, and I love how casual it is. Like, as the beam fires off and sparkles, All for One's literally just like blocks it off. Like, he literally throws it away. Like, it doesn't even bother him. He blocks it and he takes pretty much no damage. And I love how his only response is, "You ungrateful wench," and or wretch. But did you, like, All for One, there's no way you bought this, bro. But of course, Midori is like, "He felt for your act, Aoyama-kun, yay!" And Aoyama was like, "There's no other way. We had to draw them out to us." And here's the thing, right? This is the best operation for the heroes. I will readily admit that. But here, before I'll talk about it when I get to the end of the chapter. But notably, we see that the two are essentially complimenting each other because of their performance. And I feel bad. Like, Midori, what'd you even say to him? Midori, you didn't even say anything mean to him, other than, "I believed in you, Aoyama." Like, that's it. That's all you said. But of course, he's apologizing. And apparently, Aoyama even wet himself. Because, to be fair, like, putting myself in Aoyama's shoes there, if I did have the literal strongest villain on the planet just, like, glaring me down, being like, "I want all smoke with the boy in front of you. Please run it to me right this instant." I would be a little shaken too. I mean, would I pee myself? I don't think I'd go that far. Hopefully I wouldn't. But of course, see, like, sacrificing all seriousness. That's why I hate the Aoyama family. Like straight up, Horikoshi knows how to draw them properly to keep a serious tension. And notably, he never has Midoriya break the serious tension. But, like, having this face when Aoyama makes his big heel turn, or, like, is it? Yeah, it's a heel turn. He did a reverse heel turn when he was a traitor, but now he's doing the heel turn back. Like, having this weirdly funny face when he says, "I will fight All for One." Literally, the culmination of his character arc, the big declaration, kind of kills it. I don't know. Like, that is, it's, what's that effect? There's a specific thing that comes into mind. Hold on, give me a second, let me think of it. I forget the example I'm thinking of, but essentially it's the effect where the author or creator, in this case, just isn't confident enough in the serious tone that they're building up, so they have to break it with a joke. Like, you can't have straight tension, straight seriousness all the time. You got to instantly intermediate with a joke. I think that's just a problem that Horikoshi has sometimes. Like, that's just something you don't do, at least in my mind. Like, this is the culmination of Aoyama's character. Why would you turn it into a joke? I don't get. And maybe you could say the culmination of his character was when he fired the beam, right? But his declaration of "I will fight All for One," yeah, you know, I'll let it slide. I know I'm gonna remember the specific show and/or example that I'm talking about after I'm done recording, and after probably in the middle I'm drawing, because usually I actually didn't draw for this. I know what I'm gonna draw for the video, but I didn't draw for the video this time first. But thinking. Nah, yeah, I still can't figure it out. I literally sat there for a minute and tried to remember what I'm thinking of. But hi, editing pencil here / future pencil, interrupting past pencil. I think the term I was looking for was narrative dissonance. I think. But I can't remember what series I was looking for. I'm editing the video right now and I was just thought of that, but I'm not sure which series I'm thinking of that has that issue. Still can remember that. Oh well. Back to past me. Of course, All for One is now questioning, like, hey, where's the problem at? I was spinning on these perks like I'm a laundromat, but how did he deceive me? Because he shouldn't have been able to. But I think the quirk works as a perspective thing. I don't think the parents were lying to him. And technically, they told no lies. Midori is here in front of him as requested and brought by Aoyama. Like, there's no lies. And malicious intent? Maybe not. Maybe they just assumed All for One would win. Shoot, I would assume All for One would win. Especially if I was them. So I don't think there's something dysfunctional with the quirk. But of course, All for One, he just writes it off immediately. He's like, whatever, who cares? Because I'm that dude. I have these people now. And honestly, I really wish he would have kept the suit. I don't know. The suit was cool, man. Why'd you get rid of the blazer? Like, I mean, the vest beneath it is cool too. And I love how he had to come prepared, all drippy like. But he's like, whatever. Even if this was a setup, One for All is mere inches away from me. And he does still have search. I think one of you all pointed out in the comment section that he still did have search, but that's good to know. And I guess he himself held on to search, so that's good. He kept it safe. But the heroes, he senses that the heroes from the battle at the war that Shigaraki already scanned on are miles away. They won't get here in time. And with All For One's cavalry here, they won't, it wouldn't even matter, right? Like, he'd take care of them. And it's so sad, right? Like, I hate that Shigaraki was reduced to cavalry. Like, I know he's the main forefront here, and I'm scared. I'm so scared. Please, Horikoshi, bottom of my heart, don't redeem Shigaraki, or don't save him. Don't do anything. Please, just let him be him. Let him destroy. Please, I'm gonna make a whole video about that. But obviously, we pull up here. We see everyone has slightly new drip. Shigaraki is the only one who's still wearing that ratty cape. He's still nasty. He still hasn't bathed. But Dabi's got new drip. I think he has his whole chest exposed, or he has a new shirt. Toga actually has the same drip. Never mind. The only people who have new drip are All For One and Dabi. Everyone else looks the same. But there's that cool guy. I wonder what his quirk is. He has the dreads. And we see some Nomus pop out. And yeah, I'm kind of shocked we can't see Slime Guy. But essentially, All For One's like, even this is a setup, I'm here to fight you with my whole team. And obviously, we see that All For One apparently has one fear that was told by Mama and Papan. It's that the thing that All For One hates the most is that the fact that the world knows Japan isn't done just yet, and that Japan has a fighting chance, and as long as they defeat All For One right here, right now, the world can essentially be saved. And then, of course, through the use of Kurogiri's power, that I guess Aizawa managed to convince him to use. Like, he got to Oboro beneath the shell of Kurogiri and managed to get him to use his power to get everyone here. And everyone includes Endeavor, which is cool to see. Let's see, Maruko, who does have a new prosthetic arm and leg, I'm pretty sure. That's pretty cool. Shishido, the guy from Ogedamakizu, one of the original series of Horikoshi that I really, really enjoyed. Please, if you want more Horikoshi content, it's a solid, I believe, 38 chapters of good storytelling. I like the characters in it. I like the fights in it. It's really good stuff. It's not, art-wise, it's not as good as modern Horikoshi, but it still has its moments of just, like, insane art quality. So please go back and read that. Nejire, some double horn dude, Fat Gum, what's his face? Tamaki. I don't know why. I feel bad. I love Tamaki. I don't know why I forgot his name. Edshot. And Gang Orca, who's also from that Ogedamakizu manga. So please go check it out. I love Gang Orca. And weirdly enough, I don't know why they did. Like, is this supposed to be ominous? Like, you see Monoma comes out behind Aoyama through the shadow looking mad ominous as Yama's declaring that they will defeat him right here, right now. Is Monoma supposed to be like a second trader or something like that? I mean, it makes sense. His copy quirk may be related to All For One. It seems kind of similar. I mean, I'd be fine with that, like a mid-war trader. But regardless, it's going to be front-to-front, head-to-head battle. And the reason I'm so disappointed in All For One, and kind of Horikoshi, but I'm not going to take points off of Horikoshi, because he already told us the manga was going to end. You can definitely tell the man's tired. Like, I as much as I would like him to actually have drawn out an intensive two-sided war, because notably, I was going to make a video discussing the MHA war, right? Like, how I think it was going to go. It was going to be like a whole chess elaborate breakdown, and I may hypothetically still do it just because of how interested I was in the concept, because it just seems so cool to me, right? Like, by having two All For One level threats and one Midori, you can make it so by having two, like, there seem to be so much build up to this perfect dual-sided war where you would have one All For One, possibly the old body at Shiketsu, and then the new body at UA. And you would have essentially these two, this would be a choke point. And then maybe eventually the two sides would converge. And you would have Dabi with the weaker body, so like the older body, as like a cavalry point. So you have to split up Endeavor and All For One. And then you have Midoriya being forced to go to the new body so we can obviously go fight it. Like, you could have this rough, chaotic style. But the only issue I had with the original war arc was that Horikoshi did a good job of portraying a rough, chaotic style. It's just that he left so many incomplete narratives and kept stacking narratives on top of each other. Like, the best way to tell a chaotic war is to set it up that way. Like, explain to us where everyone is, and then when you start a story, go ahead and finish it. Like, go all the way through to that specific battle, and then cut somewhere else. I forget, there's a war done like that. I'm pretty sure the Magastat War and Himagi is done very, very well because it follows that format. Whenever Otaka Sensei starts something in that war, it finishes, despite how chaotic and messy it is. And I think that's great. That's a good thing to do. There are clean transitions between everything, but still gives off that chaotic war feel by how many characters are involved, how complicated it is, the arrivals. Like, that's how you tell a good war, in my mind. But I guess Horikoshi, because I don't think I'm the only person that had the criticism of the original war being a little bit too messy, but that wasn't a call to, I realized why I hate that. Wash is there. I want to rip Wash in half. But I realized that this may be a counterbalance, because essentially what this tells me is that unless Kurogiri / All for One start teleporting people everywhere to their own 1v1s, the war is going to take place in this parking lot. There's going to be no hostage situation with Yue. There's going to be no hostage situation with Shiketsu. It's just going to be a big final battle right here, right now. It's going to last like 50 chapters. Essentially, we're going to get moves. It's February. So if it's supposed to end this year, I'm assuming we're going to get at least like two chapters of epilogue at a bare minimum. Maybe 5 chapters of epilogue, like clean up after the war, and maybe a little mini time skip. So we only have like 30 or so chapters to spare. So I could definitely see this getting... Hold on, let me not say that, because that's spoilers for another series. So I'll hold off on that. But essentially, there's another series that's out there that has a big final battle that essentially just takes place. It's the final arc. It just takes forever. But notably, this series has a better job because there are multiple antagonists to take down. But I don't know. I feel like this is the least interesting way you could have done the war. Like, is that just me? Like, by having everyone just be right there at the same place, I get it. You get to complete a whole ton of character arcs at once. You don't have to worry about messy organization. You don't have to remember where things are, which is a lot easier as a creator than you think. Like, then what? It's a lot less complicated as a creator. Like, by knowing where everything is, it's a lot easier to work with it. So I don't necessarily blame Horikoshi for this. This is definitely the most efficient rule, because the most efficient way to do it. Because by doing it this way, you get to avoid all the hassle of that. And of course, this is also built up in a sense that I'm still going to make the video talking about the hypothetical war I would have liked to see. I know, I think it doesn't matter that much. But hey, all of unfolded. There's the whole truth. There's the carpet that we were pulled on that, oh no, maybe it won't be a setup by All for One's quirk reveal, only for it to be, the rug was pulled out from under us. It's safe and great now, whatever. I mean, the chapter's still solid. Like, I'm still going to give the chapter, like, removing my own biases. The chapter's fine. It's still a 9 to 10 out of 10 because it covers everything it needs to do. It does what the last chapter told us it was going to do. It finishes the build up to the final war. It gives us Aoyama's complete character revelation. It gives us All for One being drippy and the whole startup for the war. And obviously the art in this chapter is just beautiful, insane, in the membrane kind of art. Like, this is peak Horikoshi tier art, hands down. So yeah, it's a little 9 out of 10 out of 10 chapter. I'm just biased because I didn't want it to go this way. But once again, I'm trying to, especially towards the death throes of this series, I'm trying to alter my reviewing style so I can tell you how I feel about things, but still take into account how Horikoshi writes and all the externalizing circumstances that go into the creation. So while I may not enjoy it as much, I can definitely see why someone else will. However, those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Also, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. I do have a Patreon down below. I appreciate any support you're willing to give. Thank you guys once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Oop, this is that guy with the pencil, writing off.